Oh, hello. In today's video, we're going to talk about the fact that Harlequins are getting a bespoke team for Kill Team. Now, this is absolutely confirmed now, as in I've had the White Dwarf in hand and seen it myself, so absolutely it is in there on the back page of this month's White Dwarf. That in next month's White Dwarf, on sale on the 18th of March, we will be getting the bespoke team for Harlequins. So let's have a think, first of all, about what that could look like. So thinking about the Harlequin range, it's a very small range. They've got some vehicles. They're not going to add the vehicles to Kill Team. They've got the one box, the Harlequin troop, and they've got these three characters that I've pictured on the screen: the Shadowseer, the Death Jester, and the Solitaire. So I've been thinking about this. Had a little chat with Zimbad earlier in the week as well. I think the most likely setup is that you're going to get a troop master and 7 slots, right? So what that would let you do, if you want to take a team of 8 Harlequins, just like you can right now in the Compendium, you can still do that, and you'll just benefit from whatever buffs are still added in the White Dwarf in terms of the new new objectives and the new attack ops that you'll be able to do. And then I think it's very likely they're going to give you the option to add in a character, like they gave to Gene Stealer Cults. So potentially the Shadowseer, the Death Jester, possibly the Solitaire as well. I think the character will take up 2 slots, and my guess would be you'll only be able to take in 1 character. Now I know that the Gene Stealer Cults have the option to take 2, but they're a less elite team, so they got the full sort of 10 slots. I think it's only going to give you the option to take 1 character at a time, and which one you choose, you have to roster both of them or all 3 potentially, and pick based on your matchup. I personally am not sure that the Solitaire will actually be an option. I think it's difficult but not impossible for Solitaires to be as powerful on a Kill Team tabletop as they should be according to their background. But that having been said, you can say that about a lot of things in 40k and in Kill Team that show up that aren't actually as powerful as the background suggests they should be. I really would like to save the Solitaire because I, at some point in the far future, would love to come out with the kind of version of the one-man army expansion where, you know, you can play a Kill Team versus a Solitaire or Slime Marbo or an Imperial Assassin or something like that. I think that idea is always pretty cool, and I think it would be just mentally, I'd like to keep the thing that sort of my head canon, which is a Solitaire, could take on an entire Kill Team. You know, a Solitaire is equal to those 10 guys or 6 guys or whatever it was. I think if they do tone the Solitaire down to make them into a combat specialist, I struggle as to how it's going to be the one that people pick, right? Knowing nothing about what the rules are going to be and purely speculating, I really think that the Shadowseer, assuming that they have, you know, the kind of buffs and force multiplier that we expect, I reckon the Shadowseer in the rules are going to end up being the one that you want to take most of the time. The Death Jester is going to become a fairly standard kind of powerful sniper unit. You know, I can see it. I think it's cool. I think it will encourage people, you know, to go and buy those models. I would just add, when I went and looked at the Games Workshop website, I took a screenshot down here. The Solitaire is listed as out of stock, and that doesn't always mean anything. But I did find it interesting that the Shadowseer and the Death Jester look like they've had their price looked at right and moved upwards recently, and the Solitaire is a little bit cheaper. I'm not an Eldar expert, and I've not been keeping up with all the Codex rumours. Is there something going on with Solitaires more generally? I don't know. More importantly, I think for Kill Team players, in addition to probably the ability to take one of these characters, they're going to get a general buff. All the teams that have gotten bespoke, especially the White Dwarf teams, right? We look at the White Dwarf teams and how they go from their White Dwarf entry, from their Compendium entry. They all get stronger, and generally what happens is that they get some ability that previously they've had to pay command points for, that they just now can benefit from all the time. I think the likely candidate for Harlequins is that they just get to benefit from Prismatic Blur all the time. That's their thing where it's possible to force you to parry against them in close combat. That will be really strong. The alternative is that they benefit from Domino Field all the time, but I think that will be so strong as to be kind of absurd. But whatever's the case, it's going to be a really, really strong team because Harlequins are already, people talk about the meta, and very quickly we're getting into this thing where, uh, you know, it's not like 40k. We don't have only a couple of armies that are considered competitive, but a lot of people now have the idea that the competitive teams are all the bespoke teams plus Harlequins and Talons from the compendium, and all the other compendium teams that aren't Harlequins or Talons go in the bin. So now we're seeing Harlequins get a buff. They will end up with a buff over their compendium team, which should make them a really strong team. Um, will they end up being too strong? I don't know. And the thing is, if they're not stronger, then they'll be irrelevant because the Harlequin players will prefer to play the compendium team, right? So this is why I think that the option is going to be there to take the troop master plus the 7 players, because if it turns out that actually, oh, you know what, the characters are fun, but what they do, they're not actually as good as having 2 Harlequins. Games Workshop won't want people going back to the compendium. So I think even if the data sheet for the characters ends up being a little bit of a bust, they'll still want people to use this team. So that basic vanilla kind of Harlequin team of the 7 Harlequins and the Troop Master, they'll still be there with the same stat line, I reckon, from the compendium, just with whatever extra buff they get on, whether it's the objectives and whatever their sort of team-wide rule turns out to be. So it's going to be difficult. It's going to be interesting to balance because I already regard Harlequins as being. I don't even think that the 2 teams, Harlequins and Talons, I don't regard them as being at the bottom of the competitive teams either. I think Harlequins are, they're in there where there are other bespoke teams that the compendium Harlequins are already probably better than in the hands of equally skilled players. So it's going to be really interesting for the wider meta to see where they end up. But what does this mean for one of my favourite things, which is speculating about future releases? And I know some people love this stuff and some people hate it. But we know that we're getting 4 big boxes, 1 a quarter, because they publish this graphic. Some people, I think, are wishfully thinking that this means that we're definitely going to get a big box every quarter for the 3-year lifespan of the game, and that's just a little note there. I don't think they've not committed to that. If you look at the graphic, they're committed to do 4 big boxes. We know what 3 of them are going to be. I think that they might then take a break and do something else, like a book or some kind of compendium, but that's by the by. I'll save that for another video. We know we're getting these 4 big boxes, and we looked at it and we thought, well, we're going to get a White Dwarf team per quarter to go along with the box. Now, initially, when Octarius came out, we got 2 consecutive White Dwarves, and people thought, oh, are we going to get a team every month? And then they didn't seem to do one in the White Dwarf after that. And then people were like, oh, are we getting are we getting 2 a quarter? And then it worked out. People are like, oh, no, we're going to get 1 each quarter with the box. But now, getting Harlequins before the end of March, it means that we might be getting 2 again. So it could be that we're just. Basically, we know nothing about the frequency of White Dwarf releases at this point. Okay, none of our assumptions seem to really hold up. It could be that we're getting extra White Dwarf teams than we thought, and we'll get more than 4. We'll get another White Dwarf team before this first 12 months, this period to June is over. But really, White Dwarf seems kind of messed up at the moment. By which I mean the latest issue of White Dwarf has an expansion for 40k, the Altensar Craft World expansion for Codex Eldar, which isn't out yet, which seems strange. And I don't know where they've got articles they've got written and they're kind of pulling them forward and assembling the issues to send them out, because obviously they've had COVID and disruption and working from home. And even though COVID's basically wrapped up now, like historically we know White Dwarf is produced like an absurd amount of time in advance compared to a lot of the other things Games Workshop does. Like, White Dwarf's actually one of the most secretive parts of Games Workshop because they have to photograph all the models to put them in the magazine, and it's all produced a long, long time in advance. So, it could be that they're just pulling things out of their piles of done articles to get to that page count, to get to the magazine out the door, because some of the other stuff that would be more kind of fillery, like people doing conversions with plastic kits that have been made and stuff like that, hasn't been done yet. So it could be that it was supposed to be 1 a quarter, but things are getting moved around. We honestly don't know. So I'll touch about this more in a future video, but we don't know at all now how many White Dwarf teams we're going to get in this 12-month period, July 2021 to June 2022, which I'm going to refer to as year one, right, of Kill Team, the support window that they have committed to in this graphic. And there is an elephant in the room. I made a video, quite popular video, talking about these rumours about mimes and also squats. It seems really unlikely. Let me just get the... Yeah, so we're talking about this bit here. Harlequins get a Kill Team box sometime in the next year with a new unit for use in 40k. No details on it yet. And it says this is the new unit mentioned in Day 10 Harlequins calendar, which is over here. And we're talking about this bit. Harlequins get a new unit later in the year. This new unit may not be in the codex at the start. We know it's not in the codex at the start because the codex has been leaked forwards, backwards, and upside down. So is this idea of a new Harlequin unit, which I speculated were going to be mimes, is that totally dead in the water? Probably. I think it would be quite strange if they started to bring out another set of Kill Team rules for the same faction before all the other factions had their rules and before there's a Space Marine Bespoke team. It doesn't mean that it's not in the works for, you know, year 2, year 3. We're probably going to get 3 years with this version of Kill Team, right? If all the other things you've observed with Games Workshop are accurate, we might get mimes year 2, year 3. And then where does that leave us with the juicy little rumour on here about squats? Again, I don't know. A Kill Team box eventually potentially a long way away, so it could still happen, I suppose. But we really... It does certainly make the fact that we've got these Harlequin rules coming in White Dwarf makes both the mimes and the squats seem less likely now to me. And it was always kind of strange that these rumours came up in this advent calendar from the Eldari Discord server. Everything else in that calendar that they published was basically explained by the fact that they'd seen a playtester's copy of the codex. And then these two things, these Kill Team things, was kind of jammed in there, and they didn't obviously seem like they had come from that same source of a leaked playtester's copy of the codex. So maybe that's not happening. We'll have to see. I know that's not very fulfilling. So some final thoughts. I will do a larger speculation video once we've got the opposing force in enactment. I know a lot of us say, oh yes, it's probably going to be Chaos Space Marines. I want to get that nailed on, and then I'll bring back my chart, and I will talk about the teams we have, teams we don't have, and try and speculate about what's going to be in box number 4, and what might come in future White Dwarves. And that video is coming, because I know that I got some things right and some things wrong. Games Workshop are behaving what I think is quite strangely for someone who likes to predict rumours. To get Harlequins so close to the Plastic Corsairs, I think they're going to steal each other's thunder a little bit, because I think that a lot of the people, Mrs. Tabletop Impulse, just as an example, she really likes Harlequins, and then the Corsairs coming out and she really likes Corsairs, but then also the White Dwarf rules expanding the Harlequins are coming out, so you're kind of fishing in the same pool of people that really like a certain aesthetic and a certain kind of model. And is one going to end up stealing the spotlight or the thunder from the other? And there's the very real risk that the Kill Team, the Harlequins from White Dwarf, end up being competitively really strong, and then stealing a bit of the spotlight from the gorgeous new models of the Corsairs. So that's interesting. I'd love to know your thoughts about what you think is going to be in the Harlequin team. We can kind of think about that between now and the White Dwarf going on sale and see who is closest to the mark. You've all seen what I think. And apart from that, that's really it. So if you want to like the video, give it a like. If you want to subscribe, all the things that I usually have to say at the end of the video. Please do those. It really helps out, especially subscribing. If you've watched 2 or 3 videos now, clicking the subscribe button really just helps out, like small channels like mine get into that 1,000 subscriber mark's really important, so that would really help me out as well. Yeah, thanks. I hope you have a great day, whatever you're doing, and I look forward to speaking to you again on Wednesday. We'll talk about something else. All right, bye guys, cheerio.